Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Credit Talk. So, my name is Todd Stern, and sitting to the right of me, we're very fortunate tonight to have Larry Smith, attorney at law. A little bit about Larry. He's a consumer attorney concentrating his practice in the area of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And Larry will discuss a little bit more what is the Fair Credit Reporting Act in a second here. Is he qualified to talk about this? Well, I think so. He's resolved over 1,000 fair credit reporting cases in court. So I think that gives you a little bit of credit. So we're very happy to have you with us. You've been an attorney since 1993 in Chicago here. So that's really exciting. Just so you know, this is a live call-in show. So if you have any questions regarding credit or you want to speak with Larry, ask him questions about problems that you've had with your credit report, where things have been on your report that just don't belong to you, they won't come off. We're going to touch base on all these types of subjects. So give us a call now because the lines do fill up quickly. So Larry, I've got a couple topics I'd like to discuss with you.
Sure.
And we get a lot of calls at the Help Center all the time with these questions, but now I've got a real professional here, so I would want to ask you these questions as well. So people call us and they say that they have an account that was sold to a debt buyer. A debt buyer is a collection agency, and it's showing that they still owe the money to the original creditor. And we've had that before where, you know, for instance, a major bank will have it saying that they owe $700, and the collection agency says that they owe them $700 as well. Can they do that? Can both parties show that there is a debt that is owed?
Both parties can report the debt, but not both can report the balance. So what typically will happen is the original creditor will charge off the account, and they'll report the account is charged off and sold to somebody else, and the balance has to be reverted to zero. And that's the most important part. So you can't have two people reporting the balance. Only one can. So the original creditor will report the balance as zero. The new collector or debt buyer will start reporting the debt with the balance on it. So only one could report the balance. Both can be on their credit report.
And we're gonna we already got a call, so let's go to our first caller. Hello, caller. How are you?
Yes, thank you for taking my call. I actually wanted to make a couple of points. You had struck on one that I wanted to make, and that is that once a debt is sold to another party, that's the point at which people need to be made aware of the fact that in all likelihood that debt was purchased for only a fraction of the total amount. For instance, if it was $1,000, the likelihood is that they may have paid 20 cents on the dollar. Meaning that for them to make a profit, you know, if they can just get you to pay 25 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar, they've made money on your debt. So, you know, under no circumstances should you ever consider paying the full amount to somebody, to a secondary debt holder, someone who's purchased it from the original debt holder, because they only purchased it for a fraction. So you should know that. You know, they obviously would love to talk you into the idea of paying 100% of it, but trust me, they didn't pay 100% to get it. So, you know, under no means should you pay that. Secondly, I was wondering if you could perhaps talk about the power and the arbitrary nature of the credit reporting agencies and just how much influence they have on our lives. There's very little regulation over these entities. I mean, you can be declared dead in this country, and for all intents and purposes, you can't get credit because somebody decided to mistakenly put you down as dead or deceased, and that's it. Your credit cards can be negated. Your credit lines are dead. You can't do anything that a normal person. You can't rent a car should you decide to travel somewhere, and because of the power that the credit agencies have in terms of defining our lives. And I was wondering if you could touch on that for a moment.
Excellent. Sure. So why don't you talk first about the
debt buyer?
The debt buyer.
Well, you're pointing out, caller, that debt buying industry is very lucrative. It is. These debt buyers can buy debts for pennies on the dollar, but legally they can collect the entire amount. They can file a lawsuit for exactly what the debt was, plus whatever interest might have been tacked on. But what you point out is some people are in the know and know that that buyer is really only into it for a little amount. It is a good negotiating tactic. You can try to settle the debt for considerably less, but don't be fooled. They can sue you for the whole amount. It's a matter of how you know how to negotiate.
Now, one thing, Larry, that I do tell when people call us at the Help Center, especially if it's a small debt, $100, $200. I had one instance where, yes, they called the guy up who actually had a lot of money, and he had a hospital bill from out of state, didn't know about. They called him up and said, okay, I'm going to say Mr. Smith, but Mr. Smith, being generic, you owe $100. We'll take $50 for it right now. But, who doesn't like a good deal?
Right.
So he said, fine, I'll do that. But now the credit report was marked settle for less than original amount. What happened? He went down 60 points because now it is marked settled for less than original amount. So I advise people in this situation, if you have the money and it's $100 and you're going to pay it in full. Now, if you're talking a debt that might be $10,000 and they're offering it for $2,000 and money's tight, you got to do what you got to do, and then you worry about what it says on the credit report. But here's a gentleman that had a high score and was now knocked down 60 points.
Yeah, that's a negative mark. Settling for less than the full balance is actually a negative mark.
Yes, which is crazy, and he was not informed about this either.
No.
So what are his second question regarding the credit bureaus, the power that they have?
Well, you mentioned that.
And you know them well.
Yeah, I know them well. We've handled a lot of cases against them. And you mentioned the issue of somebody being dead or being reported as dead. We've handled that case. We've seen that before, and it happens. It takes one creditor to have a mistake, and they put something in there. But the dispute process is there to help you. And if you write a good dispute, the credit bureaus don't have all that much power. They can't do whatever they want. They can't report whatever they want. They have to report what's accurate, legally accurate. And so you have a dispute process, and Todd, I'm sure, talked about it plenty on the show, and that's what he does, is handles these disputes. And if those are done right, your credit report should get corrected.
Yes. And, one thing I have noticed, so I've been in the credit industry for 28, 29 years now, and when I first got involved in this industry, there were so many errors, so many mistakes. Over the years, it's gotten a lot better because the credit bureaus know that, and they don't want to get sued. So actually, Larry, we have another caller. So let's go to the next caller. Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Regarding a paid collection, if someone pays it, why is it still reporting?
Oh, that's a good question because negative information will remain on your credit report for 7 years. If it's a bankruptcy, it's going to stand for 10 years. So we get this call at the help center a lot too, saying, well, I paid all my collections, but they're still showing on the credit report. And maybe you can say the legal definition, why are these on?
Well, paid or unpaid, it has an obsolescence period of 7 years. A collection has a 7-year, or any regular negative account has a 7-year obsolescence period. What that means is it becomes obsolete and has to fall off after 7 years. Doesn't matter if it's paid or not. If you pay it, then they should update the report to reflect that it's paid. The balance should be zero, and the zero balance helps you because it inflates your score a little bit more.
Now, one quick question about that too. So she pays it, and is it 7 years? Now, does that start again?
No, it does not start again. It's 7 years. It's got a 7-year shelf life of negativity, and that's it. So it's 7 years from the time that it became delinquent. It doesn't matter whose hands it's in. It could switch hands 5 times. It's still just 7 years from the original delinquency.
And I think we have another caller, and the first call, I think we cut you off a little soon, but if you want to call back with your question. Go ahead, caller. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Good. I have 2 questions, actually. The first one is for Larry, the attorney. So I have a car loan, and I've had it for a while. It automatically just deducts from my checking account. But over the last 6 months, I noticed on my credit report that it indicates my payments were late. So, of course, I called the account or the bank, Nissan Bank, to find out and verify that my payments were on time, and they said everything was okay and that they would call and fix it. They promised they would fix it. It's been a while now, and they haven't fixed anything. I just actually checked it today. So, should I dispute it with credit bureaus?
Yes.
I don't really know where to go from there.
Yes. Absolutely, you should dispute it. It's an odd way that the Fair Credit Reporting Act is written, and you're preaching to the choir about it, but you cannot pursue your creditor just for reporting inaccurate information. You have to go through a dispute process. You have to alert the bureaus that your creditor is doing something wrong. The bureaus will alert the creditor that there's an investigation ongoing and you need to help out with the investigation, and then they'll report back to you. So if your creditor is doing something wrong, Yeah, you can go to them and they'll make promises to you, but your legal rights aren't really protected until you dispute to the bureau. So you should do that right away. And when you dispute to the bureaus, include that proof that you have that you've made all your payments.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking now is because I had a different situation where I actually went and disputed something multiple times through the bureaus, and I felt like I spent so much time and energy, and nothing was ever taken off my report. So at that point, I actually looked into doing credit clearing, and that's actually part of the reason why I'm on the phone right now. Just wanting to get more information on that.
There you go.
So that's a good question. And as you know, I've said on many of my shows back in the day, there's a lot of good, as we call them, credit repair companies out there. Now with the internet and Google, if you're going to use one, check them out. Read the reviews. Make sure that the reviews are good. Obviously, if somebody's got a bunch of good reviews, that's going to mean something. If they're all bad reviews, then stay away. Another thing that you want to make sure is that when you talk to a credit repair company is, do they have all the right, licenses? Are they in compliance? Are they bonded? They're not allowed to charge you upfront fees. So if a credit company, which we hear all the time at the help center, is that, oh, this guy wants to charge me $1,000, and we'll be like, how long? 6 months. We tell them, stay away from those people. That's illegal. So the Fair Credit Reporting Act states there are no upfront fees in credit repair. They have to charge you month to month. So just be careful with that.
And if you're disputing these things over and over to the credit bureaus, and the credit bureaus aren't making a correction, and what they're continuing to report is inaccurate and it's harmful to you, you have rights under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. You contact a lawyer.
Sorry about that. So why don't you, if you have a little bit more time, we don't have time to go on this all night, but
No, I know.
I'm sorry.
Have one more question.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
Question for Todd, real quick. How long does the negative information actually remain on my credit report?
Excellent question. Negative information will remain on your credit report for 7 years from the time it goes bad. Now, if you file a bankruptcy, that's 10 years. And people as well think just because they filed a bankruptcy that their credit report's going to be wiped clean.
No.
That's not true. It's actually going to add to it. You're going to have a public record, which will state the bankruptcy. And then under all the accounts that are filed under the bankruptcy, that's going to state as well, account filed in bankruptcy. But there is life after bankruptcy, as we both know. You'll be amazed. Some of the credit card companies, there's a couple out there that will automatically start sending you credit cards. Now, granted, they're small amounts, $300 to $500, but basically they know you cannot file a bankruptcy for another 10 years. You have no debt. You're a good risk. We're gonna extend $300 to you. And if you do get those type of credit cards, continue making your payments on time, and eventually they will raise the credit limit on you as well, which is really important. So
the other there's one good positive about what bankruptcy does to your credit report, and it does wipe out the balances.
Yes.
And one big score factor is what your average daily balance is across all your trade lines. So when you make all those zero, you are increasing your score a little bit.
Yep. We have another caller on the line. Hello, caller. How are you?
Hi. I'm fine, thank you. I have a question for Larry. I am going crazy. I am on the do not call list, and I've registered my home phone and cell phone, but I'm constantly getting phone calls from solicitors, and I tell them at the time to please take me off their list. But is there anything else I can do?
Well, there's a law called the Telephonic Consumer Protection Act, and it does cover these issues. These companies are not allowed to call you if you're on the do not call list. They're not allowed to call your cell phone with an automated dialer or with a pre-recorded message if you've not given them express permission to do so in the first place. There are a lot of class actions out there. We handle these, and that's what you can do is you can have an attorney look into it for you to see, is this a viable defendant? Because the other problem with these kinds of matters are a lot of these callers, they're kind of holed up somewhere in an apartment, they're hiding, and you don't know who they are or where they are. So what I tell people who come to me with these problems, I say, you know what, answer the phone, talk to them a little bit, find out what they're selling, ask for a brochure, act like you're interested, and you might find out who's really behind it.
Yes.
And if it's a rather decent-sized company, then something could be done, and they could be put in their place.
Well, how do they get your number if you're on a do not call list?
It's a good question.
There's a lot of places they could get them. There are these internet companies that do that literally go out and buy cell phone numbers and put them out there and sell them. And they sell lists, and you can buy lists of people.
I see. Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Excellent. That's Larry. It happens to me too. I'm on the do not call list. I just learned something. It is so annoying. And my favorite one, who out there gets the
ship.
The ship. I love the ship. I want a cruise. It's not going to cost me anything. Yeah, right.
The ship and the alarm company that wants to give you a free alarm system.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are really hard to find. We're finding that those are just scammers.
And I think with the technology today, they make it look like it's coming for a 312 number or a 773 number. So you're like, oh, it must be a friend or something like that. Let's answer it. And then you get the ship sound.
Right.
So we have another caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Yes, I want to make a couple of points. One, with regard to how companies get your phone number, unbeknownst to many people, many times when you fill out an application, when you take out credit to buy a car, to buy an appliance, to do any number of things, when you give your number out, your contact information out through various entities which are legitimate, they reserve the right to sell that information to other entities. And that's how sometimes your number or your contact information gets in the hands of companies that you don't want to have that information. If you want a more simplistic view, go out and rent Glengarry Glen Ross.
Right.
Wonderful movie.
Great
about,
movie.
Exactly how it is that people, get someone to buy something over the phone. Well, they have to have a lead, and that lead is predicated upon what your income is and your past purchase and buying history is. So they're not trying to sell $1 million worth of real estate to somebody who makes $20,000 a year. There's a reason why you've been linked to a certain kind of cold caller or automated call. That's point number one. Point number two, the reality is that there are entities such as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that was advocated by people like Elizabeth Warren for many years, and we finally created because many of the credit agencies did have a great deal of power. I mean, you were really powerless in many ways to do something when they made a mistake with regard to your credit report. You could file an appeal, you could do something, but there was no impetus for them to do much about it because there was nothing that was going to, adversely affect them. What exactly were they going to do? Someone was going to stop using the credit agencies? No, all businesses that extend credit rely upon them in order to get an idea of your credit worthiness. Nobody was going to stop using Experian or Equifax or TransUnion. So they had very little incentive to make sure that all of our credit reports were right. Now, finally, we're starting to do something in terms of making it tougher on them. Let's penalize them. If I'm denied credit and I have to pay X amount more over the course of a number of years because you got my credit report wrong, well, then, one of the recourse that we should have in this country is that you're going to pay the difference. And a penalty because you're the one who got the credit report wrong that predicated a higher interest rate for me. And we do need to, advance our consumer rights in this country and not simply allow a small, interest group to govern exactly how it is that this relationship exists. And that's exactly who governs it. These entities put a lot of money into your elected officials in order to lobby them to make sure that laws are passed that protect them. They do not protect you and me.
Well, the Fair Credit Reporting Act does that. Yes, the CFPB has been great. Their first function, they were going after the debt collectors, and they've done a great job of cleaning up that business.
Right, and we didn't.
But you've got the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and so when you do lose that thing, when you do lose something, it's a very effective law. And not only is it an effective law, but it also provides for a fee shift, so you don't have to worry about paying an attorney because these companies are so big, they have such an advantage over you. If they break the law, they have to pay your attorney's fees. So you do have that. You do have that to come back at them with.
That's great.
And the last point I wanted to make is keep in mind that if, in fact, you're on the tail end of that 7 years, and we're talking about a reasonable amount of debt here, you are in a much better position if you're in the 6th or 7th year of that debt to negotiate that down. Because that's going to fall off after the 7th year. So you've got to be cognizant of all of your rights and your bargaining. And the other thing, yes, if you make a deal where you paid $50 on a $100 debt and it's reported negatively as settled for a lesser amount. Well, what you need to do is, before you agree to pay that $50, is to agree with the individual holding that debt that, okay, this is going to be reported as paid. It is not going to be negatively reported. You need to negotiate that as well. Get it in writing.
And sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you at this moment. You have a lot of valid points here, and I appreciate the call. We're very low. We only have a couple minutes left, so we have a couple points we want to get across. But excellent. Please, call us in the future. It was your topics were awesome. So we have another caller on the phone. Hello, caller.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Good. My question's for Todd.
Yes.
I have quite a few credit cards. I have a couple of them with high balances. Is it bad to have a lot of them with high balances, or is it better to have low balances and high limits?
Yes and yes. Well, no and yes. So the rule of thumb is 30%. When you go over 30% of the credit limit, that's going to start affecting your score. So, and really you should have 3 credit cards, maybe 4. Keep your balances below 30%, because when you have all those cards that you might not be using as well, that's debt that you can get into. So that doesn't help your score either. The available credit, too much available credit does hurt your score as well. So, I've even talked to people at TransUnion before, and we've discussed matters, about credit reports, and I'll be like, what's up? And the first thing they say is, lower the debt, lower the debt. So the rule of thumb is, remember, if it's a $1,000 credit limit, anytime you go over $300, it's going to start lowering your score. So try to keep your balances low. Don't get in trouble that way. Stay away from the department store credit cards. Many of you have seen my show before, have heard me say that. Let's go. Thank you very much for calling. So let's go to our next call. Hello, caller.
Hi. I have a question. When my husband filed bankruptcy, it was still showing the debt amounts. That he filed, he has a Chapter 7.
After filing, all the credit report, all the accounts, trade lines in the accounts still had balances?
Yeah,
it
showed on the zeros.
Were they also reporting that the account was included in bankruptcy?
Yes.
That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. So that should be disputed to the credit bureaus. Hey, credit bureaus, these are all included in bankruptcy, but you're reporting a balance. There shouldn't be a balance here. They should remove that.
Okay. And then also, are they now reporting rent and utilities like they didn't in the past?
Utilities, yes, some of them do. Rent can be reported. But you have to go. The landlord has to go through a private company to do it, because somebody that owns 1 or 2 units is not going to report to the credit bureaus. It's way too expensive. But there are companies that landlords will hire that is a payment system, and then they report to that call. Caller, thank you so much. We have time for about one more call, and let's go to that call. Hello, caller.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I got a question. If you have a family member that dies and has run up outstanding credit balances, is the family responsible for settling those debts, or who is responsible?
Well, not the family, but the estate would be. If there's anything left, and if there's money in the estate, they're liable. The estate is responsible for paying that up.
You're only liable for those debts which you actually signed off on. Okay, so if you were a co-signer for a family member's debt and that family member passed, then they could look to you. But if you're not on those debts at all, it's just a family member, no matter what family member it is, no. They can't come looking at you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for calling, and we're about out of time here now. So for the people that our phone lines are just blowing up here. So for the people
Gotta have me back.
We are going to definitely have Larry back. But if you did not get in, I know there's several calls that we could not get to tonight. Please give us a call at the Help Center right now. Leave a voicemail. We will call you back the next day and answer all your questions, give you some more time. 25 minutes that we have here goes by very fast, very fast.
Yeah.
I do really want to thank Attorney Larry Smith for being with us tonight, and we will definitely have him back. He's a hit. And stay tuned for Veterans Affair. It's a great show that comes up next after Credit Talk. We will be here next Thursday at 6 p.m., so be sure to watch us. And thank you, and have a great night.